Avengers in his mind. That he has spent his time, the storytelling is that, at the end of Winter Soldier, Black Widow released all the Hydra files that had been hidden onto the internet. And so the idea is those files were out there, many of them were written in code. Zemo has been so driven that he's been combing through these files, trying to find a thread, because he knows he's mortal. He knows he can't go against the Avengers. He knows he can't physically defeat them, but he knows he might be able to undo them from the inside. So he's looking for a shred of evidence, this idea that the Winter Soldier may have been involved with the murder of Tony Stark's parents. And he goes after this, where, it's upon you guys now to keep the spoilers from getting out there. That's your responsibility.
This is going live on the internet right now.
He's found that needle in the haystack. He's found the shred of evidence that he needs, and it's basically a complex trail that he follows to its end.
And just wanted to know if this character is a character you would like to go back with in the next steps. Is that interesting? Yeah.
Well, I think it is very interesting because Zemo, I think there's a big open question at the end of the movie. He tries to kill himself at the end of the film, and Panther stops him. And it's a very interesting place to leave a character, somebody who thought his mission was over to the point where he could end his life, but then is denied that. And where does that kind of a character go? How does that character move forward from there? Be very interesting to see.
Question here.
It is a question to every one of you. Would you have personally chosen the team Iron Man or Captain America?
All right, you, Mr. Director, tell us which team you would go for.
Look who he's traveling with.
Okay, we'll say that. It was critically important. My brother and I always believed the best version of the movie was the version where you get to the end of the film and you would not know who to side with. That both Tony and Steve were a little right and a little wrong. And you could equally relate to both. It was really important to us because I think, look, we've seen these characters develop now over several films. You know who Tony Stark is. You know who Steve Rogers is. You know they're not villains. They're not going to all of a sudden lose their minds and go insane unless they were mind controlled or some extraordinary circumstances that may take us another movie or two to develop. These are well-rounded people. So to get them into the point where they are going to fight each other to that degree, where their relationship may become irreconcilable, it's a very sensitive process to take them through.
Yeah, I mean, to me, just as objective as I can be, I just looked at it as I think what the filmmakers accomplished was at the end, it got me thinking about how quickly you'll, whether it's politics or sports or, a couple breaks up, and how quickly we can be indoctrinated into thinking something applies to our rationale, and then we start buying onto that idea if I'm on this side or I'm on that side, So I think that without being too heavy-handed, it actually strangely got me contemplating something that is, that's worth thinking about.
What about you, Don and Emily?
Well, for me, the one sort of salient argument about whose side was that Team Iron Man seemed to represent many sides, and it wasn't just simply about what Tony Stark wanted, but it was about what many nations had put their hands in the air and said what they wanted as well. And even if it were later going to be vitiated, I thought it made sense to agree in the beginning. Even if later they said, you know what, we made a mistake, we're going to do what we want to do anyway. At least what the argument that Tony Stark makes about coming in and gaining some trust back and showing that there is a letter of the law that they recognize, I thought that made sense.
Agreed, Emily? You nodding?
I'm just always constant.
It's like that bird that gets water.
It's hard to disagree, are we speaking from a character's perspective or a personal perspective? Because as Emily, I would find it really, really difficult to choose. I think that's what makes the movie so interesting, and what the audience is going to love is you can't you can't quite figure it out because both are right, both are wrong in many ways. It's really challenging. I think from the character's perspective, I mean, it's hard for her because, you know, it's like, what, is she going to follow her head or is she going to follow her heart? It would make perfect sense for her to agree with Iron Man and agree that the Avengers should sign the Accords because, I mean, she works for the government and that in her terms is the right thing to do. But where her heart's at is a different story. You know, she's incredibly loyal to Steve and so you kind of get a sense of where her loyalties really lie in this film, ultimately.
Alors, dernière question. Oui, you wanted to add something?
This, though, I am wearing my Iron Man cufflinks today.
Oh,
That means something.
can we see them?
Yes.
He does. All right. Dernière question, oui.
Bonjour, je vous remercie d'être ici.
Very good.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for the three great movie. It's a global question. I would like to speak about what's not in a movie. Can you tell us a bit about the deleted scenes, with its subplots, and for each of you, the one you missed the most?
Deleted scenes.
There aren't many deleted scenes in the movie. There is a portion of a scene between Don and Robert that has been deleted. It was their final scene in the movie, which came out great, but we just had more than we needed there. But you know, the thing is, and they can talk to you more specifically about that. I don't think you're in a deleted scene in the movie, right? No. But look, these movies are very expensive to make. So by the time my brother and I our philosophy has always been, by the time you get to set, you want to know exactly what you need in the movie because you don't want to spend any resources on anything that's not going to end up in the theaters. So we're very careful in the script development process to get really close to the mark in terms of what we're going to shoot. So I think, fortunately, both on Winter Soldier and this movie, we didn't have a lot of deleted scenes. But you guys want to talk about that scene that you did?
I think, well, there was something on the front and the tail of it a little bit. You kept the meat of the scene, the important part, them making their connection. But it first started with a physical therapist, right? And a little flirtation with Rhodey in it.
Yeah,
That's right.
Rhodey had taken a liking to his PT coach.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then also after that, there was kind of a resolution with Rhodey checking in with Tony about Pepper.
Right.
But by the way, when I watched it, I was just like, we just needed to get you expressing yourself, and we had to get right to Tony Stank. We had to get right to Stan's thing.
All right, last question here.
J'aurais voulu savoir si Iron Man aurait signé l'accord si Donald Trump était le président des États-Unis.
Well, if Donald Trump had been president of the United States. It's a question for you, Robert. It's a tough one. Would you have signed these accords if Donald Trump had been president of the United States?
Anything that comes out of my mouth is going to be what any article is led with. And we'll give you that satisfaction.
All right.
Very wise.
God bless you all.
God bless you too.